Good evening, everyone. How are you today? You may be in the daytime still. Well, where we are, it's nighttime. If you're across the world, it may be something else. But hey, welcome to another wonderful edition of 2022 SEC College Football Weekly with Dadman. Uh, it's rolled around again. We are entering week 7 of the college football season. What does that mean? 13 weeks. We're over halfway there in the regular season. It is amazing how fast the season flies. I guess as I get older, the season goes way, way too fast. So you have to appreciate, enjoy every week that you have. And then the next thing you know, it'll be the bowl games. We'll have national championship. And then before you know it, it'll be August again, and we're going to start up again. So love this season. And 7 weeks ago when we started this was an adventure that who knew how long it would go, what would happen. Met a lot of nice people along the way. Have had some incredible guests along the way. Going to have more incredible guests coming up. It's just been a wonderful time, and I thank you for everybody for your support and for watching the videos on replay, or if you've been in here live. Would love to see a lot of you chatting tonight, because we can really have a lot of good conversation with this. And if you have any questions, we'll try to work them in and, take care of things like that as we can. Like I said, I appreciate all y'all for your support. Make sure you subscribe and like the video on the YouTube side. And if you're on Twitch, make sure to leave a follow. We're getting close to some 50 marks on both sides. And, like I said, thank you all. And, well, with that, let me say hi to a couple people that have come in already before I introduce this guest. We got Maddie's daddy. Hey, Steve Mitchum. It doesn't matter if you're a football fan or not. We here have a good time, and we might talk about who knows what, and maybe even more than football before. We've even talked hockey. So anything's on the table here. So thank you for being here. And hey, CJ, thank you here for CJ. And CJ's done some channel art for our channel on a number of things, with some thumbnails for our Fortnite and our banner on YouTube for the football stream. So that's what we have here. So I know I'm stuttering right now, but it is because I'm really excited about the guest we have tonight. This guest is, I consider, a role model of YouTube and what YouTube should be. A very class act, knows his stuff in whatever subject it is, and very passionate about what he does and what he talks about. And yet, helps out the little guy and is one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. So without further ado, because I know he's busy tonight and he's got his own show later, let me give a warm Dadman Walking 55 welcome to the great, the incredible, the thing himself, Clobberin Times. Clobberin, how are you tonight?
It's clobbering time, but more importantly, it's Dadman walking in 55 in time there. And hello there, Mrs. Dadman, by the way. Thanks for having me, man. I'm honored to be here. That was a very nice introduction. You are too kind, man. I'm blushing. You're worse than Raquel, man. I'm starting to blush here.
Oh, gosh. Well, it might be a different shade of brown then, I guess, or orange. But yeah, well, hey, well, I mean it.
It's still orange.
I tell you.
Thank you, Burr. Thank you, bud.
You're so great. You've been great to my kids' channel for shout outs and now with getting this started. And you've always been great to be there for advice, when we've been off streams and stuff like that. And, I appreciate all the help that you've been given and the support and the encouragement, Well,
that's what friends are for, buddy. I'm glad to help, man.
Absolutely. So, well, like we talked about off stage, there may be some people that don't know a lot about you, Clobby. So tell us a little bit about some of your hobbies, your interests, maybe some of the things your channel does too.
Well, there's no secret. Unless they haven't watched the channel, of course, I guess. Clobberin Times, we all know that's derived from a love of comic books, specifically The Thing from the Fantastic Four. That's my title. But, of course, I love comics, not just them. I love lots of, classic Marvel and DC character comics and many others. The whole art form of comics I love. I love geek stuff. meaning, of course, Star Trek, Doctor Who, some Star Wars, and many others, science fiction, fantasy related, imaginative media, you might say, movies and film, and those are my passions. My geekness is my passion. It's what I'm at the core. But the one thing I've geek out about that's not considered, standard geek stuff like all that stuff is that I love on the same level, or I have loved on the same level, is NFL football, in particular NFL history. And for about 50 some odd years, my beloved New Orleans Saints. They were my team, but of course, I love the game of football. I particularly love it. I played it at its top level out in the NFL. Not so much modern now, but I love NFL history. So I love the game, and I do watch a little college as well.
Yeah, I tell you, that might be something for a future conversation, a future stream, as talking about the history of the NFL, because I go back to the 70s for the Cowboys, Staubach.
I love those. Love them.
Ed Too Tall Jones. I mean, the Steelers, the Raiders. I mean, you had, pure rivalries in those, and it was a real physical game. I mean, many times it was like hockey where they don't have teeth anymore and stuff, and and it was different. The quarterbacks weren't protected. The wide receivers, you better be ready to get hit over the middle. It was a different age, and the other thing too, that I find it would be interesting to go down an avenue, maybe on a stream like that in the future, is the old time announcers. Because I don't think the announcers today are anywhere with the quality that they used to be. Like Dick Enberg.
Michaels is almost done. He's one of the few throwbacks, Al Michaels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I should say Dick Enberg. Yeah.
Yeah, because Dick Enberg was one that seemed like he did everything. College seemed like he did the Orange Bowl, the NFL, the Orange Bowl, the Super Bowl, and
Kurt Gowdy before him. A lot of great ones.
Yeah. I love that one scene. Yeah. Do you remember the one scene in Naked Gun when they had all the announcers? There's like 8 of them, and Dr. Joyce Brothers.
Kurt Gowdy was there, I think. Dick Enberg I think he was there too. There was a bunch of them. That's fun. That's a fun topic. Yeah, man, I love, as you know, I love my Howard Cosell, and I love Dandy Don and Frank. I love the Monday Night Crew from the real deal. Again, like I said, I really do like Al Michaels. He's old now; he's still doing it, but as far as college goes, Keith Jackson, who was the first. He was in the first year. He was in the booth the very first year of Monday Night Football. A lot of people forget that. Then he left and went and did just college for ABC. But whoa, Nanny, Keith Jackson, he was really something. That guy. His voice epitomizes college football announcing.
Exactly, I agree with you on that, and that's one that I had been thinking all along from the college level.
Sure, he's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I tell you, I don't know what's happened. Either the water the talent down, or it's probably like the game where it's changed. It's softened or done something, and it's not what it used to be for us old farts. Because even the announcers were tough back then. But it just, like I said, that's a good avenue for us to explore sometime too. Because they're great announcers, I mean.
Oh yeah.
The Howard Cosell. Just some of the greatest announcers that you've ever seen were back then, and but did you have a particular favorite announcer that you liked above and beyond the others?
I don't know about one particular favorite. Like I said, I loved Howard because he used to really annoy everybody. I just like announcing teams more than anything else. I even liked Madden and Summerall in those days. So, I thought they were great. But no, maybe not a particular favorite. We had everyone probably who has a local team has some local guys. We had a guy in our town in New Orleans named Jim Henderson that I was very fond of. And finally retired just a few years back, but did it for 20, 30 something years. So no one that stands out other than he's not an announcer. He didn't want a play-by-play or a color guy, but the great John Vicenda, who was, of course, the voice of NFL films, working for Steve Sable and Ed Sable, is the greatest voice in all of sports history, in my opinion, including guys like Harry Carey and things like that. John Vicenda is the voice. They called him the voice for a reason. The man is the professional football in America is a game, not a war. It's for win or lose, not life or death. Yes. But say that in the summer. because winter brings the playoffs and a season is at stake. I can't
Yeah,
do it.
nothing like those old NFL films videos,
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, Clobby, before we keep going, we'll touch on that in a second. I got something for you if I can do this right. This is dangerous. I'm going to be doing things tonight I'm not used to doing. Yeah, and you know how that goes is that you run the risk of really blowing things up. So let me see if I can get this real quick. We're doing it, and this is just for you, my friend. Courtesy of our mutual friend, Mark D with a C,
The great Mark D with a C. Where is he anyway? Where's that boy?
Yeah, I know.
Well, he's probably busy.
Well, here you go, Clobby. Everybody in the chat, if you haven't seen this yet.
That sinister laugh of his.
Yeah. He got 2,000. Can you believe he got 2,000 views on that? And then he said 6 subs. It was hilarious. It was like, holy crap.
He should be ashamed of himself. That Mark D will see is no good, man. He's no good.
Absolutely. He's big. He's got so much stuff out there to clip. If he just stops and takes time to clip it, he would be. Yeah. Oh,
that was something.
Absolutely. Well, Clobby, I know we're going to go ahead and get into things, and thank you for telling everybody about what you think about your channel and a little bit about your stuff, and we'll talk more football as we go along. But
man, do your business, man. I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Well, let me see, and I forgot to hit F11 again. There you go. All right. So on that note, and howdy back to you, Squeaka.
Hey there, Squeaka.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to see you.
Yep. First and foremost, whatever you see here, don't use this and rely on this for gambling. If you try to, it's your own fault, because I like to think I know what I'm doing and talking about, but I'm not always right, And we're here to have fun and just with friends and talk football, and that's about it. Just not to be. We take the football seriously. You know what, Clobby? But not that seriously, because my dad always said, "Don't, fool his money is soon parted." And
sure.
I was the guy that I was a cheap gambler. When we went to Las Vegas once, I couldn't stand losing $1, $5. I was a cheap gambler. My dad, though, somehow won on the slides. But yeah, you can't be cheap. But hey,
well, now they have all the online gambling. Now it's a little different now. But, yeah.
I know, and I tell you what, honestly,
I don't do that myself,
but see, we talked about the old days of sports, and you remember how the NFL and all the leagues, and even college especially, it was like they wanted nothing to do with gambling. It was, but now it's like you can't turn right or left without points, gambling sites, and all this, and in some ways I don't like it. I think it's a change,
Well, they took the crime out of a lot of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in, I guess, the 80s, or someone that I'm not saying is me, might not even look anything like me or anything, or have my same name or anything, used to play those betting cards that were not necessarily, put it on the above board. In other words, I don't know if they had bookies all over town, and you run into somebody, say, you want to play this betting card? You pick it. You pick parlays, you pick point spreads, you picked overs and unders, and that wasn't legal.
Yeah.
And that was somebody that didn't sort of look like me at all. It was nothing to do with me. I'm just saying, and that person that I'm talking about used to do that, a lot. And those were bookies.
Yeah. I
don't hear about bookies anymore.
No, I don't. Well, because they've made it all legal above board. And I mean, all these betting houses, I mean, they made it a level where you don't have to hide it. It's wide in the open. We have a betting house here that a couple of the betting houses, they have poker and online the sports betting and stuff like that. So
we have a lot of casinos down here. I don't know if you can sports bet at them or not, but
yeah, we don't have casinos here yet. Well, I take that back. In Florida, there are some casinos in some of the Seminole tribe areas, but they're very limited and restricted to certain areas. So
they're all over Louisiana and the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, I've heard about Biloxi and all that around the coast.
Yes, sir.
It's like, but you know
I
what
don't
was
know
a
if they have sports gambling at those yet, though.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I went to Las Vegas once, and people can do what they want. They're adults and stuff like that. But it broke our heart when we sat there going in through the hotels and seeing people's kids lined up on stairs with their video game things. Just my point of personal opinion right there. But
Sure.
it's just like and you take your kids to Las Vegas. How many water slides can you do in a day? I mean, for a week, but. Oh well,
I hear you.
that's a different thing for another day, Clobby.
Sure.
So let's get into some of last week's action. How about that?
Go for it, man.
All righty. Hey, the first game of the week was a big game last week. Was in the West. We for the control of the West. Texas A&M, Alabama. Alabama held off for a 24-20 win. A&M got the ball back. Was inside the Alabama 10-yard line with 3 seconds left. And Alabama's defense held on an out pass. So
it was huh?
It was a very big scare because Alabama is looking very pedestrian without Bryce Young at quarterback. As you look with the stats, only 111 yards passing, wow. And they've got a quarterback that he's 12 and 19 passing. Jalen Milroe.
Wow.
He threw for 3 touchdowns, but a pick. But
they lost the turnover battle and barely win this thing. Yeah.
You know what? It was very uncharacteristic of a Nick Saban team. They fumbled 3 times.
Wow.
I mean, it was watching. I'm amazed he had any hair left knowing him.
Dude, look at this. They lose the turnover battle. They're almost even on possession, and to dominate in rushing and really they're kind of beaten in passing, and they eke out a 4-point victory. That kind of figures, I guess.
Yeah, a win's a win. They played at home. A&M had been struggling. A&M's lost to Appalachian State at home and has struggled offensively all year. And again, they're at 20 points, but one more score. Who knows? Right. This game ended up a lot tighter than I figured it would. But then again, you've got a backup quarterback who's more for running than he is throwing the ball. It was obvious with the way he threw this week. They did have good. Jahmyr Gibbs had another big game for 21 rushes for 154 yards. Haynes King returned to the starting role for A&M, 25 of 46 passing, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And Evan Stewart had 8 catches for 106 yards. But this was tighter than it probably should have been for Alabama. I mean,
can't play that again. Can't play like that at Tennessee. I'll tell you that.
Nope. I believe Bryce Young is supposed to be back, but he's coming off a shoulder tweak. But who knows? You never know. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, Alabama also. This was a home game for Alabama.
That's another thing that surprises me.
Yeah,
they're usually pretty stout at home, so that's some sloppy stuff and not very Saban-esque.
No,
which
definitely not.
They're just so lucky. In fact, sometimes they're just the luckiest team on the road. They're lucky at home. They're crazy good.
Well, a lot of people do say they get the home cooking from the officials too. So that's
they do. Well, they're Alabama, of course.
Yeah.
They do.
You know what they do at that stadium though now? The days that I can't stand, and I see more schools. I don't mean to be the grumpy Dadman hour, but you used to have just lights. A night game, you have lights, right? But now these states, they're doing this choreographed music with the flashing, pulsating lights.
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like too much stimulus in that case. But, if you watch an Alabama home night game, be ready for a lot of flashing lights.
There you go.
All right. Anything else you want to say with this one, Clobby?
Go for it, man. I'll just since I haven't seen any of these games, we'll talk stats because I can comment on stats.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. And I tell you, Clobby, all this production here, what you see goes all credit to the great and glorious Mrs. Dadman.
Yay, Mrs. Dadman.
Without her, I would not be doing this.
That is a nice job. I like that.
As she says, I can't afford her. So,
well, I hear you. I hear you there.
Hard work. So she puts up with me. So, and the next game, we're looking at the top teams of the East and the West. Georgia wins going away at home against Auburn, 42-10. Stetson Bennett was 22 of 32 passing for 208 yards, 3 carries on 64 yards and a touchdown. Dejon Edwards for Georgia, 12 rushes, 83 yards for 3 touchdowns. Robbie Ashford is a relatively new and experienced quarterback for Auburn. I think this is his second start. Was about 33% passing, really bad numbers. 165 yards in his first road game with a touchdown. I put this down here: Tanks Bigsby for Auburn, 10 rushes, 19 yards. Why I put that there is Tanks Bigsby was a preseason All SEC running back this year. Going into the season, he had a history of having big games, big yardage totals, but this year has not been able to get on track this year when it's hurt the Auburn offense. And Georgia outscored Auburn 21-7 in the fourth quarter. So any thoughts on this one, Clobby?
Well, Auburn's just not really any good anymore in Georgia. So what is Georgia? Are they number 1 right now? Or they're number 1? Yeah. It's just not much. It's just a pretty big mismatch. I did not see this game, of course, but look at that, 500 yards, only 1 turnover. Look at the time of possession, says it all.
Time of possession.
Look at those rushing yards. That's crazy.
Yeah, and Georgia had been a little more pass heavy this year, but
even LSU whooped Auburn, so I should tell you something.
Well, and Auburn, and that's the thing. Auburn had a 17-0 lead in that game, and LSU came back 21 and answered to win it.
Well, they're both not very good, but Auburn's really not good right now.
Yeah, they're predicted to finish at the bottom of the season. But you know what? They're a school that keeps firing their coach. They want to win a national championship. If they don't do it again in 3 years, they fire them. Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn. It's like they don't stay with somebody. And now this guy in his second year, who they got rid of Malzahn for, they want to run him out of town, it seems like. But and a couple weeks ago, also, Clobby, Auburn won a game against Missouri 17-14 in overtime. They won because the Missouri running backs tried that thing where everybody stretches the ball out. He lost control of the ball, fumbled in the end zone, and Auburn recovered it.
Wow.
So Auburn was that close to another loss, and they barely beat San Jose State. So that tells you how Auburn has fallen off over the years. Yeah. And which is really sad, because this if you look at this game, this rivalry here, this is a rivalry that goes back to the 1800s. And you know what's funny is they played in like Columbus, Georgia for many years. It's just the weirdest thing. If you look back at the history of this stuff, it's so amazing how the game has changed over the years and stuff like that.
I've been to Columbus, Georgia, and it's and been to Auburn. It's that's crazy long time rivalry, but it'll come back around. Yeah. Auburn is they've never been like very consistent. With their college with football.
But you wonder too is can they not stay with a coach or be patient, and because look at what's made Alabama, what's going to make Georgia. You've got consistency at the head coaching position. That's right. There's another school coming up that I'm afraid of, and I'm going to talk about that one a little bit later. So, all right. Well, let's go on to the next game. Is the your poor friends out in Louisiana there. Tennessee trounces LSU on the road 40-13. Again, another yardage domination. Time of possession's about even, but over 500 yards of offense. Hendon Hooker for Tennessee with 17-27 passing, 239 yards and 2 touchdowns, and still ran for 56 yards. Jaden Daniels for LSU was 32 of 45 passing. That, to me, is a telltale sign of a problem with LSU. When they have to throw the ball 45 times, that's a Brian Kelly offense thing there, and that's not a traditional LSU offense. And I wonder how long that's going to go well down there. But he threw for 300 yards for a touchdown and an interception. Jabari Small for Tennessee had 22 carries for 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. So...
yeah, it's not much to say here. Tennessee is a powerhouse, and LSU is garbage right now. I mean, and with Brian Kelly, I don't expect him to be much else. I could be wrong. I'm never really. I was like a lot of people. I think I scratched my head when they picked him up. So this is going to be a long season for them up and down. They're not going to really challenge anyone.
Yeah. Well, let me say hello to O.C. Dobbins real quick. Hey, Glad to have you with us tonight. So, you know what this reminds me of? A few years ago, Mississippi State hired a guy, Joe Moorhead, out of Penn State as an assistant coach. He came down to Starkville, Mississippi. That just didn't fit, you know. I mean, you're talking about the heart of Dixie there, and it
I
didn't. It
remember him.
didn't last 2 years, and now he's back up north.
Saban's a Yankee, though. Saban's a Yankee, and he came down to.
But he had a way to fit in with the Southern culture, though. You know,
Right.
But also, then you know what cures everything? Winning.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't the biggest fan of Les Miles, but he was a Yankee and he did win a national championship. Saban was a Yankee. He gave him a championship. Ogeron was not really. He was a dope from, I don't know, but he got him one because, he built a lot of what Wes Miles put together. So
yeah,
it's weird, but
Les
when
Miles
you're that far south, though.
Yeah,
what's that?
Les Miles is a crazy old guy. I mean, he beat Florida several times, going for fourth and whatever all the time. I'm like, how the heck can you convert so many? It was like, geez, you know. But he got away with it for a while, at least.
He did.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's always going to be weird down with LSU. There's not going to have a lot of consistency with their coaches. They'll get one that will come in and just blow the socks off it and have a fantastic couple of years, and then boom, just nothing. And feast or famine. Really, with him and Ed Ogeron, who would have think that Ed Ogeron would have had that 2019 season? A guy like him, but he did, and it was 15-0, and they had one of the that quarterback. He had a quarterback that had one of the greatest college seasons of all time. Who would have expected that out of a guy like? Look, I call the caveman talk like this. Ogeron.
I've seen some great clips with him, and it's like. Say what you will about everything with him, and he apparently that year got some good assistants with him that did the job, and I think sometimes that's a mark of a good coach that can find the right people to supplement them. But what happened with him was that the thing I loved with the guy, he was all LSU. He loved LSU. Everything he said was LSU, go Tigers. You know, kind of felt bad they fired him the way they did because, you know, he bled and died LSU there for a while. So, you know, it really was. Let me say hi to Wade Nation. Hey, I'm calling if Tennessee wins, they're going to playoffs. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Stay to the end of the show, Wade. You never know what we're going to say about that point. But, yeah, and like you said, and back to your point with Kelly, I thought it was an odd hire when they hired him because it's just I had the same concern with somebody else that we can talk about a little bit. So I agree. They'll get like I said, also LSU when they've been strong, they've run the ball as much as they passed it. When they throw 45 passes,
when you run for 55 yards in the SEC, you're not going to win any game.
Nope, that's true. That is true. So, all right, we'll move on to the next game. Ole Miss at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss wins going away 52-28.
Wow.
Yeah, but look at the stats. Vanderbilt's actually got some offense this day and age. I mean, A.J. Swan has taken over at quarterback. He was 27 of 38 passing, 281 yards and 2 touchdowns in a losing effort. But what's interesting with this game, Clobby?
The possession's insane right there. That ratio.
It is. It is.
I just goes to show you that Ole Miss didn't need much time.
No.
Even though they have 142 yards rushing, it makes sense that if you have 448 yards passing, you don't need a lot of time in possession. And I didn't see this game, but apparently they just – and it's Vanderbilt, let's just be honest. But, they tore them to pieces. Ole Miss is decent right now. So.
Yeah, big plays. Big plays is a thing. What's interesting with this game is Jackson Dart.
6-0. So.
Jackson Dart was 25-32 passing, 448 yards. The last several weeks, Ole Miss has been running much more than they have been throwing the ball. So this is a flip for them where they've actually gone back to true Lane Kiffin offense that is more pass heavy. So that was interesting with that. But, that time of possession is just amazing.
That's crazy.
But I will say, this gets to the debate about Vanderbilt. There's been speculation. Can they get a win this year in the conference? They have not won in the conference in 2 years. But this does not look like the old traditional walkover Vanderbilt per se. The old Vanderbilt wouldn't even scored 20 points against Ole Miss.
Well, I don't know who they play, but they probably can if they play some of the teams I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think people have already marked down when they play Missouri as a possible game. So I tell you what, when they play Kentucky, Kentucky's offense has been weak this year. So but we'll see what happens when we get to those. Ole Miss had 4 team rushing touchdowns. That basically, they scored 4 times on the ground. Vandy actually led this game at halftime, 20-17, but was outscored 35-8 in the second half. So that's progress, though.
Wow, 4 rushing touchdowns. They're amazing. I haven't seen Ole Miss have this good a year in a long time, so far anyway. Undefeated.
But you know what's sad for Vanderbilt? Another thing that's sad for Vanderbilt, I mean, most every home game for them is really a road game because they generally have more visiting fans in their stadium than they do. So it's
that's one. Look at the 35 points in the second half. That's what impresses me, though.
Yep. I mean, halftime adjustments come out, kick them hard, and beat them down. So, all right. Well, we'll move on to South Carolina, Kentucky. This was. I watched some of this game. It was kind of a dud game, but But Kentucky was without their starting quarterback Will Revis, who had a foot injury. So Kara Sharon was his first time starting, was 15 of 27 passing, 178 yards. Did throw for 2 touchdowns and an interception, but as the game went, it was like get a new starter in there. Even though your stats may look good, it's still not productive. It was a hard struggle for them with only 121 yards passing. It just, the 178 passing, and South Carolina was balanced attack on this time, but both teams had 2 turnovers, and
it was really a game there.
It was, and South Carolina outscored Kentucky 17-7 in the second half. Do you remember Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma a few years ago?
I vaguely do.
Because they beat Florida in a bowl game, and there was a big controversy thing. Well, he ended up losing his job last year at Oklahoma, transferred to South Carolina. He's there now. I mean, but 14 of 19 passing for 177 yards, pretty average. But give Carolina credit. They went on the road, they won the game. And as we'll preview, got some comments on that because now that is Kentucky's second loss in the conference, and they had plans for challenging Georgia this year. Now the question is when they challenge Tennessee,
and now both of these teams are 4-2.
Absolutely. All right, and then we'll go to Arkansas at Mississippi State.
Wow,
this game surprised me. I mean, I going into the season, I felt like Arkansas had a good team. They'd put a couple of seasons together. They seem to be turning the corner. And now they've lost 3 games in the conference in a row. And, they're in a tailspin with that. So they're going to be lucky finish middle of the pack. Look at the difference in first downs, almost double for Mississippi State. And I know what you think of Mike Leach in the air raid offense, but 395 yards passing. But even with the passing offense, look at the time of possession, 10 minutes longer.
That's some nice balance too with the running game. So
Will Rogers was 31 of 48 passing for 395 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dylan Johnson was 17 carries for 100 yards. Yeah.
Did Will impart any good old colorful anecdotes and tell any stories? Different Will Rogers.
I know. I keep thinking about that every daggone time when I see that guy's name. So it's like, no, it's a different one.
Mississippi State, pretty strong zip on the turnovers, just extraordinary stats, and that's a solid, more than solid win for them.
Yeah, and Arkansas was without their starting quarterback C.J. Jefferson.
Oh, okay.
And who it probably made some difference, but when you ended up giving 40 points up on defense, I don't know that I don't know that would have changed a lot. Because you see that Malik Hornsby was about 50%, under 50%, but averaged almost 30 yards of completion. That's like big time. 8 carries for 114 yards in the losing effort. But, the yardage looks pretty balanced, but it's not indicative of a score there. So,
indeed.
and I love this. I had to point this game to you, because your buddy Mike Leach. Hey, imagine if LSU had hired him a few years ago.
Oh, you never know.
Hey.
He and I don't talk anymore.
No, I don't blame you. I don't think a lot of people talk to him either. So it's one of those people you try to avoid. And I think this is the last game from last week. We're going to be recapping. What a hideous disaster of a boring game to watch as a Gator fan. Why the hell? Excuse me. Why does Florida always struggle with misery? I mean, I've hated misery since they came in from the freaking Big 12. Florida tied up the all-time series 6-6 with this win, but every daggum year they can barely beat them. They're misery. They were supposed to be at the bottom of the conference and all this, and in Florida, as well as they played on offense against Tennessee a couple weeks ago, 66 yards passing in this game. I mean,
that's bad, buddy. That's bad.
8 of 14, 66 yards. And this gets to one of my all-time critics. I've gotten kind of crap from some family members that are big Gator booster fans because I don't know that I like this coach in Napier down in Gainesville. Came from Louisiana. He may have done well there, but I don't know that he's cut out for the SEC.
Who was it again?
Napier, Billy Napier.
Oh, Billy Napier.
Yeah. Because the game against Tennessee, he pulled a Les Miles going for every fourth down,
right?
And he got lucky in that game, but against Kentucky, it burned them.
Yeah,
I mean, it's always good gambling when it works out to your advantage, but you see here, Florida got dominated on the stats again. Look at the 150
the first
yards.
downs. That's terrible.
Time of possession. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it just and
rushing's great. They had a good day rushing.
They have some good running backs. My criticism is, the old days, you had one running back and you stuck with him, right?
Yeah.
They got 3 running backs and they're all talented, but it's like
committee
equal time play. It's like equal time league play.
Committee, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the guy gets a hot hand. Stick with him. Stay with him.
Yeah.
But,
sure.
That's a development I've not liked, but still. Brady Cook was 22 of 30 passing. Had a really good game for Missouri, 220 yards, but threw 2 picks. One of those was critical down on a drive near the Gator goal line. And the other pick was a pick 6 for a touchdown for the Gators. So, see, if you want to take it, the winning difference was due to the Florida defense. Montrell Johnson, who came over from Louisiana with Billy Napier, had 8 carries for 86 yards. Nathaniel Pete had a career day for Missouri, 20 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown. So, this is one of those games as a Gator fan that when they beat Utah and even when they lost to Tennessee, I had some hope. I don't see how you go in the tank. And what also offends me in a way, how these draft analysts come out and they start ranking everybody and comparing them to people.
Yeah.
They compared Richardson to Cam Newton.
Oh,
I think what somebody said, he comparing to Cam Newton, but he can't throw like Cam Newton. So
if you can't throw like him, you shouldn't be compared to him.
Oh, exactly. So, and that's where I agree with that. So, well, that my friend deals with our weekend review. So, we will see. Yep. Let's see. I will bring back up where we are in the conference this week. Georgia and Tennessee atop the East. No surprise there. Undefeated. South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida in a tie for the middle of the pack, and then Vanderbilt, Missouri coming up the rear.
Wow, quite a conference this year. Look at them. It's a lot of good teams, or a lot of teams, doing well, at least in terms of records.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, early on, what I figured was I thought Florida would be a wild card. It depended on the coaching and the quarterback, and see when they struggle, so they're further down. But anywhere between Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Florida could have finished anywhere between 2nd and 5th because I think that they were so even. But as we see the season going on, we see that it looks like Tennessee's pulling away though now. Yeah. And in the West, of course, Alabama. We'll find out in a few weeks if Ole Miss is legitimate. And you look at Mississippi State over there at 2-1. We'll find out if either one of those are legitimate, contenders to Alabama this year.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, Bama may look wounded, but that's usually when the good guy, the big dog's more dangerous is when you think you got him down. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. All right. Well, Clobby, now we're going to
Yes, sir.
talk a little bit about general football stuff. So in terms of, we talked a little bit. Obviously, we know the New Orleans Saints are your favorite team. Do you have any other favorite or kind of pro teams that you do like to follow, or college teams that when you do maybe look at a college game you like to follow?
Well, because I'm in Baton Rouge, and just South Louisiana in general. I was, when I was a kid, the LSU mascot is Mike the Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like a lot of kids, got the name Michael because of Mike the Tiger. It was just ridiculous, but at least they tell me that. But the LSU is huge down here. When I was a kid, it wasn't too many years after one of their few national championships in '58 with Billy Cannon, and
Mm-hmm.
and the LSU's biggest sin when I was a kid in terms of '60s and all throughout the '70s was because they were really good. But you know why no one talks about the '70s LSU Tigers? It's because of Bear Bryant in the '70s Alabama Crimson Tide. They just couldn't beat. You couldn't beat Alabama. You could beat Ole Miss a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You beat Archie Manning and Ole Miss and stuff. Although he beat LSU as well. We had a great quarterback by the name of Burt Jones. So LSU is the big deal down here. So I mean, but I've just never been a college football guy. I would watch it. I've never had any passion for it, and that's a strange thing because usually one of the common things you will hear from people. This is something I've heard all my life. When you just bump into somebody talking about football, even if they're talking about the pro, they say, I like college football better, and they would give you these reasons, like because it's more thrilling, or it's more enthusiastic, or this, that, and whatever it is. There was something along the line. They would always say, I like it better. Mm-hmm. You hear that commonly, at least I did, all my life from people. Every time even if we were having a conversation about a pro game, I just like college better. I'm that guy, that weirdo that would always say, I like the pros way better. I've always have. And, people sometimes really like pro football. College is so much more exciting because they're kids. And I would always say, well, yeah, but they're playing, they're auditioning for the pros. When you get in the pros, you're playing for way more stakes. You're playing for your livelihood and to stay at a job. And the championship it's the highest level the game can be played at. So for me, again, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with preferring college football. Many people do. It's huge. So my college team, if I would definitely always want to see LSU do well and win. And I enjoyed that 2019 season with Joe Burrow. And then whenever I'm able to, if I'm around, I will definitely sit there and watch them. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's always been the NFL, and it's always been my New Orleans Saints, although throughout the 70s, you and I talked about this a little bit before the show. In the 70s, my pathetic Saints, I remember I first got interested in them. Actually, when I was very young, I knew LSU. Before I really knew much about pro football, I knew a little bit about my first memory of a pro game was Super Bowl III, with the Horsies playing the Jets, the Colts Jets, Johnny Unitas and Joe Namath and Earl Morrall. But I remember in 1971, I broke my arm, and my uncle gave me a present. It was an autographed picture of Archie Manning.
Oh wow!
He was wearing his Ole Miss garb, and I was like, "Why'd you give me Ole Miss? We hate Ole Miss. We're LSU." LSU hated Ole Miss more than Alabama back then.
Oh yeah.
He said, "Well, he's going to be the new quarterback for the New Orleans Saints." He's and that, of course, because of Archie Manning, I fell in love with the Saints. Mm-hmm. However, because I also fell in love with the game of pro football, the New Orleans Saints were garbage for so long. They were usually out of the playoff hunt by October sometimes, which means as much as I wanted my team to do well, I kind of, like a lot of kids, you fall in love with the winners. And in the 70s, you either loved the 70s Cowboys or the 70s Steelers, and there was no in between. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was the Tom Landry, Roger Staubach, Dallas Cowboys that I loved in the 70s. Even though I still loved my Saints, they were garbage until the 80s, until the late 80s.
Oh yeah.
So I loved my Landry Cowboys back then, the Staubach led ones.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
I agree with you there. A lot of fond memories of Tom Landry. I mean, that's another thing we could go talk about for
oh
hours
God,
about
it was
the great
just
memories
amazing.
of the Cowboys and the class of the organization. I mean, with Landry, the way he carried himself, and you know, and then,
He introduced the need for like offensive coordinators for
yeah,
using computers and stuff and very sophisticated offensive schemes and things like that. Tom Landry revolutionized the game.
hmm yeah, and the shotgun. I think they
Shotgun
were
was
one of the
Cowboys.
first.
Yep, yep.
And then you remember when they did the flex defense? With
They
the
had the
line.
flex.
Yep,
Absolutely, they had their doomsday defense,
yep.
and they had the flex. No, teams did that for a while. They emulated that for a while. You don't see it anymore, but yes,
No.
it really kind of it
Mhm.
made an offensive line nervous. I think they actually stopped it.
Yeah,
Can't
they
really do
probably.
it.
You know how every league's got to cut something down. You can't let anything go. Got to regulate everything to
Sure.
death.
But for being
Um,
honest, the dominant team of the '70s though was the Steelers. Though,
yeah, I
whether you
have to.
like them or not,
No, I know because they beat the Cowboys every time they played in the Super
they
Bowl.
won four
I
biggies.
just they won when it counted. I mean, the Cowboys tried to rally. They won their share, but you know, it was still not enough.
There were a lot of great teams and a lot of great players in the '70s, which, in my opinion, will always be the greatest decade for pro football, even better than the '60s and even better
Hmm.
than the '80s. It's just one problem. If unless you were the Steelers, Cowboys, Dolphins, or Raiders, or even Vikings, just those are the ones that only won the games.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you were good, you just weren't good enough because those teams were at the very top again. Steelers, then Cowboys, then Dolphins, then Raiders, and then the Minnesota would always at least give them some trouble. But there were a few other good teams in that era throughout that were good. You'll never hear about because they weren't those teams. That's about every decade, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny how it ebbs and flows because now this day and age we got different other. You don't see as many dynasties like you used to, but I mean it would
No,
still
that's
happen
over.
at times. I mean the Patriots have had a
Right?
amazing run for as long as they've had, but they're rare. I think we're
They're the
seeing more of the
only
domination is
one.
now in the college game though.
Right.
In a college game, it's like if you're Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, you're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot every year, and everybody else is fighting for the rest.
Yep.
And
That's right.
and culture casino was on one night, and we kind of touched about it. That's another topic about this whole NIL, these licensing deals with these players going to these schools and stuff now, and what effect it'll have on the game, and will the rich get richer, type thing, and and that's the one thing I find personally as a college football fan a little defeating is that those teams are so daggum set that, that there's no randomness to it. It's almost like, yeah, get an expanded playoff thing to get more teams a chance to do it because at least you meet on the field, and at least if you have a shot, you can always win a game. You never know what'll happen. But if you rely on polls and pairings and stuff, everybody gets pigeonholed, and you got the same matchups every year. And where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, are
Nope.
there
I
any
hear you.
specific, whether it's college or pro games, is there any particular favorite game or most memorable game that you have that stands out to you?
Well, the one that means the most to me, of course, was if you wanted to, is going to be Super Bowl 45. Excuse me, 44,
Mm-hmm.
because on February the 7th, 2010, I lived a dream that I was pretty sure, as a New Orleans Saints fanatic and lover at that point of 40 something years, thought I would. There were a lot of Saints fans that said I'm never going to live long enough to see the Saints win a Super Bowl. And when we got into that, so I remember when we got in there. Thank you, Brett Favre, for being garbage and putting us in there. The beginning of that year, 2009, the Saints, of course, Drew Brees had been with them for a couple of years. In his first year in 2006, he got him to the NFC Championship game on the road at Chicago, and they lost. But at that time, by 2009, they were a well-oiled machine with a great, killer defense that took the ball away a lot. And they get into the playoffs. And we're pretty sure they're the Saints that are going to screw this up. They whack the Cardinals, beat the dog crap out of them, and I was like, wow, this could be it. Then I remember going back to the beginning of the season, this is when Favre first went to the Vikings. I'm sure you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching that press conference going, I don't know why, but this is going to be good for us. Meeting the Saints. I don't know why. I got a weird feeling I like this. I don't want Favre in Minnesota. It's so weird. Well, here we go. The NFC Championship game in the Superdome. And you're watching it going, the Saints really want to lose this one. I mean, look, guys, you may as well just forfeit if you're going to play like that. Clearly, they want to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So they turned the ball over 5 times. Favre's going down the field. All he needs is all he needs is to throw the ball away and get a field goal, and it's over. And he throws it right to Tracy Porter. He runs around and throws the most horrible. Now he's thrown a couple of Super Bowls away. Chances to go to the Super Bowl away before. Throws it right to our boy Tracy Porter. Picks it off. Saints go down and kick the winning field goal. And we have this. We were talking about announcers earlier. There's this great announcer, Ed. We had at the time, Jim Henderson, who we really loved. His call for that. We listen to the radio call all the time. I've listened to it so many times. He goes, and here's the play. And here's the hold. The kick. The ball is down. Here's the kick is up. He's screaming. I will not even try to emulate because it would blast your eardrums out. It's good. He's going nuts. He says, hell has frozen over. And the Saints are going to the Super Bowl. And he says, pigs have flown. Hell has frozen over. And the Saints are going to the Super Bowl. I cried. I couldn't. I was in such. I didn't get a chance to go to the game, but I was running outside. Everybody was going. Everybody in Baton Rouge and New Orleans were running out. Nobody went to sleep that night. We were running around. We went to the sports store to buy our Super Bowl shirts.
Yeah.
2 weeks. All I heard on the sports talk radio is they don't have a chance. Colts are just too good. Colts, even though Dwight Freeney was hurt, Colts, Peyton Manning's just too much experience. Peyton Manning. Everybody was picking except for maybe Gruden and Cowher, a couple guys. Everyone said Saints got it. I mean, Saints can't do this. First half was 10-6, and I'm like, oh God. At least we got. And this is how bad we are here. We got to the Super Bowl, but that's it. We can't really expect much. And then that second half, Sean Payton. I don't know if you remember that game. Onside kick. The second half kick. How crazy was that, dude?
Yeah.
And then it just started steamrolling. Started moving the ball, getting some touchdowns, and then a 2-pointer. And then Peyton Manning drops and pulls a Favre, throws right to Tracy Porter. Again, not the same exact type play, but it's as bad a throw as you're ever going to see in the Super Bowl. Almost Neil O'Donnell level bad. And if you know about Neil O'Donnell in the '95 Super Bowl against the Cowboys, Steelers, 2 interceptions.
I love Neil O'Donnell. 2 to the same guy.
I always tell a friend of mine who's a Cowboys fan, I said, no, there should be a Neil O'Donnell statue out in front of the Jerry Stadium.
Dang straight. You're right. You're right about that.
Peyton throws that bad pass. Boom, we got it. And then we get down there and my son, we were all at my place, I'm just getting misty thinking about it. I'm running around. We're all like, people were coming over. Everybody's high-fiving and hugging and going nuts and watching the ceremony. When Jim Nance says the Saints are going to do it. They won. And we saw all this stuff going on. And my son looks over at him with his camera and he's laughing at me because I was crying. I cried, man. I cried. And but before I cried, right when we won when it was called, I burst out my front door and yelled, "World Immer effing champions," as loud as I possibly could.
It's okay if you wanted to say it here, but
I'm not going to say it.
I know you're a model of class everywhere.
I did it. I wasn't classy at that point because I ran out and screamed to the top of my lungs. I went to I'd taken those 2 days off anyway, just in case we lost, and I was going to be too bummed to go to work. Yeah. And that Tuesday, of course, we had the big. It was like Mardi Gras Part 2. It was there were over 2 million people down in New Orleans and at the parades, and I couldn't get. We went down there. We couldn't get quite to the front of where the parade floats were. So that's the game that'll always be the biggest for me ever. There are plenty of games that are memorable, and it was a pretty good game. It was good for a while. It was rated in the top 10 Super Bowls. They've taken it out since then. It was a good, solid, good game. But of course, I would say that, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Hey, no problem. I mean, it's what makes you happy, and that's the beauty of football. That's why we ask a question like that is so people can see.
Sorry to go on about that, but
that's what we're here for. That's what I want is to hear what you think and what you like of football. Share it with other people. I mean,
Well,
it's in there. You had me think of a couple things.
we never got back, and we're never going back, buddy. But we got it once. We got one.
Hey, that's all. All you do, all you need is that one time. Then you say you've done it. Because I tell you, I saw Brett Favre play once in college.
Mm-hmm.
He was down here playing Florida State, and it was hotter than Hades in the first week of September, and they were carting people out of the old Gator Bowl, and they ran out of water, and they were literally carrying people out of the stands. It was so hot, and they upset FSU and Bobby Bowden that day.
Oh yeah,
So,
wow.
I mean, I loved my Seminole buddy. I just sat there looking at him the whole time. I couldn't say anything because he'd probably throw something at me if I said anything. But I'm just sitting there laughing, like as a Gator fan. It couldn't happen to nicer people.
Southern Miss beat Bowden.
No. Yes, I think it was 1989, I believe.
Oh wow!
But yeah, I was there that day. I was there that day. And the other thing is a great announcers. I wish I could figure out the rules for playing crap on YouTube because Larry Munson had the best call ever in a Georgia-Florida game when Georgia got an 80-something yard pass. Thought Florida was going to finally beat them as like an 11-year-old kid. That broke my heart. Talking about crying and stuff. It was like the run game, and it's like one guy slipped and he went all the way. It was like,
whoa,
yeah.
Oh, you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. One of our most memorable games in a bad way, endings happened in Jacksonville.
Oh, really? Which one was that?
In 2013. You know how they give games names?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the exclamation without a point?
I don't think so.
Saints. Okay. We were at I remember it was a Christmas party, and unfortunately, it was a Sunday where we were all pretty, annoyed that our Christmas party landed on this Sunday. The Saints were playing at Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
This is 2003, I believe. Hadn't had the greatest of season, but if they win, then later in the day, whoever win out of a certain game would decide whether they go to the playoffs or not. So they needed to but they had to win first, right? They had to beat Jacksonville. And there's this play. You could find it on YouTube, probably, because it was the most insane play. There was no time left on the clock, so Aaron Brooks was the quarterback at the time. He threw a pass over. You know how you see these desperation plays where you'll throw one over the middle and everybody's playing throwing the ball laterally backwards with no time on the clock.
Right.
If you watch that, it changed Saints hands of Saints players 7 or 8 times and finally got it into the game. It was the craziest touchdown you ever see to tie the game. To tie the game. So again, you got to find it. It's crazy. They call it. I forgot the name of it now, but I think it's been called the exclamation without a point. So on comes. All you need is the extra point. You're gonna at least be alive in the playoffs for another couple hours, right?
Yeah.
John Carney, 20-something years in the league.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mr. Automatic.
This was before they moved the extra point back. This is a chip shot. You could do it backwards.
Yeah, you and I could do it.
Comes in there and he misses the freaking extra point which have tied the game, which at least put him. I think it would have been to tie the game. That's right, to put him into overtime, I believe.
Yeah.
So you needed to tie the game, and he missed it. I mean, again, today extra points are farther back, as you know. This was 2003-ish, I think. It was such a chip shot. He could do it. They could do it in their sleep, and the guy had been doing it for 20-something years, misses it. Yeah. Jim Henderson's call was like, "Oh my God, how could he do that?" It was So again, remember, a whole bunch of us are at a Christmas party. I've got my grandmother there. They got a lot of old ladies there. My mom is there and everything, and everyone's already yelling and screaming at the game anyway.
Yeah.
Some friend of mine, one of my cousins behind me, before he kicks, he could watch him miss the extra point. I said, "Shut the!" Well, I just you freaking don't even say that. Yeah. And he did. I said, "Dude, it's your fault." So obviously we're screaming and yelling and cursing like maniacs. And my mom was so mad at me. Guess who got blamed for all the screaming and yelling and cursing?
You did.
Me.
Yep. That's too fun. Well, if it'll make you feel better, in '96, the Jaguars needed to just beat the Falcons to go to the playoffs for the first time. And Morton Anderson had a 30-yard field goal he pushed left. And it was like, so they should have beat the Jaguars, but the Jaguars made the playoffs because of Morton Anderson. And for years, they had brought him down here to celebrate him, and he embraced it because it was like a big thank you to Morton Anderson. Because I know you Saints.
I love Morton. I know Morton finally went to the Hall of Fame as a Saint.
Absolutely. Oh, good.
But yeah,
Well, that's awesome, Clobberin. Thanks for sharing all that with us. That's good.
sure,
That's
man.
good stuff, and I'd love to hear more sometime. And
Yeah.
I love hearing all that. So, well, let's go ahead and move on because I know you're kind of pushed for time, and
Then
we'll
we got a
move
few more
through the
minutes, man. Whatever
yeah.
you want to do.
Well, let's look this week at this week's AP Top
Let's look at
25.
the big ones coming up. We're gonna look at the games
Exactly.
coming up, or what?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to look at the top 25 real quick and some of the polls. Georgia,
Sure,
Ohio
sure.
State, Alabama still number one. Same five. Clemson, Michigan, Tennessee's there at 6. So that Bama Tennessee game coming in big this week. Ole Miss, Penn State. A lot of the usual culprits, but Mark's little Syracuse team has snuck in at 18, and Kansas, of all people, is still in the top 25 at number 19.
Mm.
Kentucky and Texas. Texas moved into the top 25, tied with Kentucky at 22nd. We'll look at here the coaches poll, same three, just a little bit of different order. With Alabama and Georgia ahead of Ohio State, Tennessee a little further down. But that's the thing is coaches polls have it a little bit differently than the AP writers. So this is basically very similar. Teams are in similar places. There's a few near the bottom that are a little bit different, but not too far off. So with that, we're going to look at this week's games, Clobby.
Okay.
Okay, the Arkansas BYU game. Guess what? It's the first time they've ever played.
Really?
We have no history on this one. Arkansas 3-3 is on the road at BYU, who's 4-2. There's not a lot to say here except BYU has been had a better year than Arkansas. Arkansas is on that 3-game losing streak. Can they change it on the road? You never know. You play the game. Sometimes the SEC does better against those Western teams, stronger. But you have altitude issues with this game. So who knows with that game? So we'll take a little more time here looking at the LSU Florida game. The first meeting in this series goes back to September 25th. What's that?
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Okay. The first meeting ever between two schools was September 25th in 1937 when LSU won 19-0. UF leads the series all time 33-32 with 3 ties. You remember ties, I don't think these young kids know about ties, do they? But in the NFL, it's still in the NFL, but in college they got rid of the ties. So LSU has the current winning streak of 3 between 2019 and 2021.
Wow.
The largest margin for LSU of victory is 48-7 back in 1971. The Gators' largest margin of victory was 58-3 in 1993. That was Spurrier. The longest LSU winning streak is 4 games back in 1977 and 1980. The longest Gator winning streak was 9 games from 1988 to 1996.
LSU was garbage at that point. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they were. They were really, really bad because, Florida just sneezed and they could score a touchdown. Yes. It was really, really bad back then. At that point. What's interesting, Clobby, I remember going to a Florida LSU game down in Gainesville with my dad and my uncle back in the 70s. Probably between 75 to 78, I would think, because it was a nice time. Memories eating at Sonny's Barbecue on the way and stuff like that. Those are my memories of football, as family and doing stuff like that. So they're coming into the game. Both teams are 4-2. Florida had wins over Utah, South Florida, Eastern Washington, and Missouri, but losses to Kentucky, Tennessee. LSU has wins over Southern, Mississippi State, New Mexico, and Auburn, but losses to FSU and Tennessee. So, and LSU has won 9 of the last 12 games in this matchup.
Wow.
But you know what?
Not good years for Florida, but they've had plenty of times when it was the other way around.
Exactly. And just, coaching, and I thought we had some with Dan Mullen, and that's another story, another discussion for another day. But there have been some really bad blood in this. The way the SEC is set up is they have the 8 conference games, and basically in the East and the West, you pay everybody on your side, and then you get 2 from the other side.
Right.
But one of those, like from the East to the West, you get one common opponent every year. And in this case, it's Florida plays LSU every year.
Yes.
like Auburn is associated with Georgia, Tennessee with Alabama, keeping some of the rivalries together. And this is one that has been a very frustrating series for me as a Gator fan over the years. So there's been bad blood. Do you remember what happened in 2020? You know, the thing that caused a lot of delays and stuff that happened over the years? Well,
Yes.
this game got delayed till December. Florida was number 6. Florida would have rolled them if they played at the normal time, but as things happen, LSU knocked them off in Gainesville in December of 2020. But you know what this game is famous for?
Mm-mm.
Not that Florida just struggled and really let a bad team, beat them at home. They struggled. The Gators had struggled, come back, got it tied, and when their defensive backs on third down play would have forced fourth down, but I don't know what he did to the LSU player, but ended up grabbing his shoe and flinging his shoe 30 yards downfield. So you know what that brings?
Yeah.
15 yards, and then LSU goes and kicks a 50-plus yard field goal, which ends up winning the game. So that it's the sticks in your craw, really. And then also there was a game in 2016 that was delayed by Hurricane Matthew over here in Gainesville, and basically in that case, LSU went and worked with the Gators to reschedule a home game. They didn't want to give up one of their own home games.
Oh yeah.
So the conference wanted the game played. So the news articles out there, basically the Gators and the conference acknowledged, that the University of Florida gave in, and so the game could be played, and it was played over in Baton Rouge later that year. So in return, Florida got 2 home games, 2017 and 2018, back to back. So that being said, that's a little bit about LSU Florida this week. It could be a good game. I don't know. I don't know. Depends on how the quarterbacks play, I think, Clobby.
Yes. LSU is they're not really they're treading water. I mean, they have an okay record at 4-2, but conference record is what? 1-2 or 1-2?
1-2, yeah.
1-2, yeah.
1-2.
So
Yep.
I don't see them going on the road and beating Florida. I mean, not. I know. Again, I don't know much about Florida right now, but I know that they're not having a great season either.
Yeah.
So these teams probably maybe relatively evenly matched. Where if it were, the home team is going to have just a super advantage, probably in this case, because they're both tough places to play. They both call them Death Valley.
Yep.
They use each other's name. When these teams are both in the condition that they're in, I'd say if you have to take the home team.
Okay, and we'll reveal our picks in a moment. So that's cool. I love the Louisiana aspect that you bring though to the show. So appreciate your stories earlier, and it's it's been a great discussion so far tonight. So we'll go ahead through the other games. Vanderbilt at Georgia. Georgia's currently ranked number 1 AP. Georgia leads the series all-time 59-20-2. Georgia has won 12 of the last 14. Vanderbilt comes in at 3-3, better than expected and better than in past years. Georgia's 6-0. The last Vanderbilt win in this series was back in 2016. Guess when the first meeting was, Clobby, between these two schools?
1776. No.
You know what? You're close.
1800s. I know that was. I know
You're close. Yes, they first played on November 13th of 1893.
Wow.
And Vanderbilt won 35-0. So.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Well, that's about
I wonder what I'd like to see the stats on that game.
I know. I would too.
Who had what was time possession? Out of the.
I think back then they didn't give a care about crap like that. They just some geeks developed that over.
And they probably didn't throw the ball at all.
No, everything's a running play.
Right.
All right. We'll go down to the Mississippi State, number 16 at 5-1 at Kentucky, number 22 with a 4-2 record. Mississippi State leads the series 25-24, and Mississippi State has won 10 of the last 13 games. Their first meeting was in October 17th of 1914.
Wow.
Where Kentucky won 19-13.
Probably didn't have very much stats on that one either.
No, I like I said, the stats
is something that's. That's
Huh?
good.
Yeah,
At least
it's
you
not a
knew the
bad
score.
score.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Well, you know how it goes. It's it just it yeah, because I don't think they would have kept stats like that back then. I think they
I
dreamed
don't think
stats
so.
up. I mean,
Yeah, stats are later.
yeah, I tell you, because everywhere time I look at baseball again, they've developed a new stat that I never knew or cared about. So,
Yeah.
but in this case, it's a very big game for both teams because Kentucky, in order to stay in contention in the East
Yeah.
with 2 conference losses, they can't afford a third. A third will pretty much definitely eliminate them, especially after losing to Tennessee. No, not Tennessee. With the Tennessee game coming up, but losing that game at home to South Carolina last week really put a blow in their hopes to win the East. Um, Mississippi State needs to win this game to keep pace with Ole Miss and Auburn. Since Mississippi State choked at that game at LSU, um, they're chasing 2 undefeated teams. So very important game in the conference there this week. I think that's probably more of a key game than the Florida LSU game. The Florida game is more of a bragging rights thing at this point. We also have Auburn at Ole Miss, number 9 Ole Miss at 6-0. Auburn's 3-3. Auburn actually leads this series pretty heavily, 35-10 over Ole Miss. So, and the first meeting was October 20th in 1928 when Ole Miss won 19-0.
Wow.
So, what do you think about Auburn Ole Miss over there? I mean, is it a pretty natural rivalry over that way, or?
No. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't call that one a particular rivalry.
It's more the Ole Miss LSU.
LSU Ole Miss. I mean,
yeah.
Excuse me. LSU Ole Miss is. I mean, it may not be what it was long ago, but it's still pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
It's way bigger than, like, for example, LSU and Mississippi State. LSU and Ole Miss, for some reason, when I was growing up anyway, was huge.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, those rivalries. And see, that's why I really love the college football is those natural rivalries that develop over the years. So,
that's probably their biggest rivalry outside of Alabama.
All right. Well, let's get to the last game of the week, the big one. I know that Wade out there is really itching about. Alabama at Tennessee. Number 3 Alabama plays in Knoxville against number 6 Tennessee. Alabama leads the all-time series 58-38 to 7 ties. Bama is currently on a 15-game win streak in this series, dating back to 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been very dominated, almost like how Florida has been over Tennessee at times in recent years. But Tennessee beat Florida this year. The first meeting in the series was November 28th, 1901. And they tied at 6. They tied at 6.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm sitting here wondering if they're field goals or a touchdown with no extra points. So,
I don't know, because you had what did you say? One of those games was 35 to something or other from 18, whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's maybe I don't know. They kept score back then.
I don't.
I got to admit.
Tennessee's largest margin of victory is 41-14 back in 1969. Bama's largest margin of victory is 51-0 back in the big old year of 1906.
Wow, so, 51.
Yep.
And then all these games some of these games you're talking about took place before there even was an NFL.
Exactly. Tennessee's longest winning streak in the series, 7 games dating back to the really good run they had, starting with Peyton Manning on through T. Martin, and probably Casey Clausen might have been the quarterback from 1995 to 2001.
Right. That was when Peyton Manning couldn't beat Florida.
Exactly.
Danny Werfel used to, beat him so many times. Beat him all the time.
It. I love that. I love those days.
Then Danny Werfel couldn't cut it in the NFL. One of them became a legend. So
yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't remember how many Super Bowls Manning won because it's like for all the talk. Anyway, I as a Gator fan, I was never been.
I know you're not a Peyton guy.
I'm not a Peyton guy. No.
Hey, I'm glad we beat him. We beat him. So
there you go.
Danny Werfel, on the other hand.
Yeah, he was a college, and some players do it. Some players are made for the college game. Some are made for the pro game.
He was a Saint though. He played here.
Exactly. He did a lot of good stuff in the communities too. And
right, good dude.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bama's comes at 6-0 with wins over Utah State, Texas. They eked out Louisiana Monroe, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. While Tennessee comes in at 5-0 with wins over Ball State, Pitt, Akron, USF, and LSU. So before we exactly say who we think going to win on that game, Clobby, any general thoughts about this matchup?
I guess it's the biggest. It's a big one. It's a monster, but we're not talking about who we think is going to win or anything. No, not particularly, because I've only haven't seen both of them play much yet this year.
Yeah, well, I
talk about who's going to win, but we'll do that. So.
We'll do it in a second. I tell you, I listen to Sports Animal out of Knoxville because it's better radio than what we'd have down here, and they focus on the college game a lot more.
Right.
They're pumped. I mean, they're dreaming big for this. I mean, I think the win over Florida helped it get even, hotter for them because, they took care of one bad memory this year. Now, the next other big one, and they've shown the ability to play well, which they haven't in recent years. So, and I'll stop there with that. So, all right, well, you ready to? Let's get into the predictions time.
Sure.
All righty. We'll start it with where we stand. I'm at 5-2 last week. Jen was 3-4. Our special guest last week. Overall, I'm 50-12, and the guests are 41-21. And we combination of previous guests of Mrs. Dadman walking, Squeak a Mouse, Mark D with a C, who went perfect 12-0. We'll never not hear him say that again. Culture Casino and Rambling Canuck, a Canadian.
Hey, he picks college football?
Mm-hmm. Well, he had some help with it, but it was a great show if you ever get a chance to go back and watch it because we talked Canadian football too.
Okay.
It was really a good show and a lot of fun and see. Hey, guess what? Next week, I got a Brit next week for the show.
Would that be his name start with an E?
Yes, it is.
I want to talk to that man.
I know you do.
Anyway, so go for it. Yeah.
So, but we'll go. We'll have that on a special night. So this week, the games, Arkansas at BYU. Okay, Clobby, we'll go with you first. And Clobby goes with Arkansas.
Yes, I just figured, it's an SEC team. I don't know much about BYU, but I think that could be questionable considering they're on the road like that. And like you said, some altitude issues. So it's it's a shaky pick at best, but go ahead. I'll go with them.
Yeah, but you always got to play the game. You never know. I mean, maybe they're lined, maybe they're big, size differential. But I'm going to go big home. The home field advantage here in this case.
Don't blame you.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go to the next games. LSU at Florida, and Clobby takes the Gators.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, home team. When these teams are really not, neither of them are super impressive right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know. It could be a big blowout one way or the other. And you never know. Sometimes you can't trust the home team when teams are that iffy, but I kind of err on the home team side.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm really not confident in this Gator team right now. I really, because of how they're all over the place. I think coaching too. I really am concerned with their coaching. I don't see how you can go throw for 400 yards against Tennessee and then throw for 66 against Missouri at home. There's something wrong. You got a quarterback that's supposed to be Cam Newton, but he doesn't run a lot. And when he ran it against Utah, when they upset Utah, he ran the ball quite a bit. So
LSU's defense is pretty decent. So
yeah, and that could help. That could help. Like I said, the 20 game that nobody saw coming, but Florida should have won going away. But but I'll stick with the home team, Florida, with this one. So we'll see. Vanderbilt at Georgia. I don't.
Georgia's just too strong. That's going to be a monster blowout.
The only thing that scares me with that game, though, Clobby, is Georgia has had ability this year to play down to competition. They've struggled with Kent State by beating them by less than 10. They only scored 33 against Samford. They've struggled with some teams. And if Vanderbilt really can score, that's the problem. Georgia still has one of the stingiest defenses anywhere. But if Vanderbilt could get any offense, maybe they could make it a little bit of a game. But
I think they might make it early for a while, and then Georgia will run away with it. But you're right. Maybe not necessarily a monster blowout, but they'll handle it.
Yeah. They're still Georgia, still at home.
Yeah,
They're still
home.
number one. The rule of thumb is the big dog until you actually see them get beat. That's what I
Right.
say. Then the next game, Mississippi State at Kentucky. You went with the Bulldogs. I know you
Yeah.
paint on the Mike Leach pick, but
Yeah, he's the greatest. No, yeah. I just said that Kentucky doesn't have a whole lot going on with right now.
yeah, they've struggled with offense. Even their win at Florida, they didn't score many points. I mean, took pick six and a pick that was returned to inside the 5 yard line. That was 14 points Kentucky got in that game. Gifts from the quarterback. So
Right.
I don't trust Kentucky's offense this year. So then Auburn at Ole Miss. You take Ole Miss.
Oh yeah. That's just. I don't trust Auburn anything that can't even handle LSU. So
Yeah, and I agree with you with that. So, all right, the game of the week. If waiter, you better still be out there or watch the replay at some point because this one's for you, buddy. All right, Clobby, who did you take in this game?
I hope Keely Chow won't hate me. I'm gonna go ahead and just go pick against all of my. Sometimes you got to pick against your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go home team again with Tennessee, even though it's probably true they haven't really beaten anyone that's great shakes and anything. I think their confidence level is going to be high. They're at home, and Alabama's got to slip up once in a while, and they almost slipped up at home against Texas A&M. They don't. I don't know if is their starter going to be starting? Their quarterback even going to be starting this week?
They're projected. I think he's supposed to be back.
He
yes, but they've been kind of playing with that. But you never know. Sometimes they hide it. But they didn't play him last week. I think to get him another week to get healed up. So.
Yeah, again, you never know. Alabama, you can't trust Alabama to be either good or bad. In other words, they could come in and play like absolute dog crap and then find a way to win a game. I mean,
like they did in Texas.
Yeah, if they hang with any team, they're probably going to win. If they hang within a couple of points, look. I mean, they didn't. They should have lost that Texas game. I mean, they let Texas A&M scare them. So if they haven't learned anything and their quarterback's iffy, I'm just going to go. This is the time for something of an upset. I think if anyone can do it, it's Tennessee. That doesn't mean they will. I'm going against instincts because it's crazy to vote. It's crazy to pick against Alabama, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, at least in this case, it's Alabama on the road. Alabama really struggled at Texas in a hostile environment. I tell you, that town of Austin is, dang, I wouldn't mind go there and watch a game because those people in Austin were jacked up for that game. It was a noon kickoff too. Normally, noon kickoffs are a lot sleepier, a lot more sluggish and all. But damn, that was like a riot out there. I mean, they almost had Alabama. They should have had Alabama, except for Bryce Young making a dodge and got away for a 20-yard scramble that helped set up the winning field goal. Bama, see, but I still have this problem with the big dogs. I mean, even when they look sluggish and when people think they're going to get them, a game like this is when the big dog gets dangerous and sends everybody a message and just blows the crap out of everybody.
That's what scares me. That's why I'm saying it's crazy to pick against them, and I'm doing it
anyway. And also as a Gator fan, I hate Tennessee. I hate Rocky Top, that damn song. I listened to Rocky Top during the week of Florida, Tennessee, just to get more angrier as the week goes along. I hate everything about Tennessee. Alabama has got it. They're proven track record. Tennessee for so many years has been just collapse central, and everything. And like I said, Colby, did I say I hate Tennessee?
I would like to know how you feel about Tennessee, though.
Well, and so I'm going with Tennessee.
Wow.
I
got a weird feeling, but we're both probably going to be crazy.
I'm beyond weird feeling on this. I've seen both teams play. The difference is, I'm going to say this, coaching, and not about Saban. Saban is proven and all this stuff. Josh Heupel has sold me on what's happened with Tennessee, and as a Gator fan, I'm scared of that because since even Phil Fulmer was made so many bonehead coaching decisions, you could trust him to blow a game. And since then, Derek Dooley, all these other guys are just clowns, and you could hear them talk. Like I said, listening to their station up there, this guy's got it together. This guy took this team that had folded for years before, got them to a bowl game last year, respectably. And this year, they are on fire. You watch their offense, they're clicking. Their defense has gotten better. And now the fact that they're playing at home, they have a legitimate quarterback. This Hendon Hooker did not impress me when he was at Virginia Tech for many years. But in this offense, he has been dynamite. They have receivers. They don't have the depth at running back, but they have talent. And with Alabama's struggle, even with Bryce Young, when he was healthy, this is one of those games that I want to pick Alabama because the big dog, usually this is a game that the big dog puts the little guy down. And I think Tennessee's for real. And what way I wish Wade was still watching, because I tell you what, I agree with Wade. I think if Tennessee wins this game, they could be in the playoffs. And I tell you, this game slipped up on me. I've been looking at the Tennessee at Georgia game as a possible upset too, with Tennessee maybe winning at Georgia, because I'm really getting sold on this Tennessee team and how they played so far. It'll take a collapse to convince me otherwise, but I've seen they're consistent.
Yeah,
they're consistent week to week, and they've just gotten better. But it comes down to the coaching. They, I think, finally have a legitimate coach there that knows what he's doing and has them prepared for a game, can make in-game adjustments, and and I think that's what it comes down to. So
there you go. I don't believe anyone did, man. Well reasoned.
We only disagreed on one game, but hey, that's cool.
There you go. We'll see.
All right.
Yeah, well, Clobberin, win that one.
Yeah, I know you have to. I know we have to wrap up because I know you've got other commitments on a little bit too. But go ahead. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more. Pitch your channel real quick.
Well, I just talk geek stuff. As you know, Monday nights it's Monday Night Marcy Comic Talk, and on Wednesday nights it's Wildcard Wednesday. Anything goes as long as it's geekness. And tonight, of course, is Thursday. It's the Clubhouse with our good friends Raquel and Mark. And Saturday night is Saturday Night Star Trek, reviewing all of real Star Trek. Deep Space Nine is where we're at right now with that. And so, so I'll be on in about a half hour for the Clubhouse tonight.
Yes.
And thanks for having me, buddy. And thanks for in the chat for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Normally I'd have him wait in the back, but I know you have to go, so I will say good night to you and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, buddy.
And I'll talk to you again.
Enjoyed it, man.
Stream. Yes.
Anytime, man.
Love to have you back again. Thank you.
Anytime, buddy. You just name it. Later, my friend.
We'll do. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. That was an awesome time with the great Clobberin Times. Thank you for all y'all that stayed here. Hopefully you got to hear a lot of good stuff in there. He and I think could probably talk 10 hours on football in general, college, pro, you name it. Great guy. Make sure you check out his stuff, especially if you're a Star Trek fan. It's a great place to be. Comics, and a little variety tonight on the show on the Clubhouse tonight. So thank you all. Thanks again to Clobby for being here. Thank you all for being here too. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up now. What I want to point out is that, let's see, we'll bring it back up here. Next week, our show is going to be on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll have another great special guest. That's going to be fun. A good old friend from the UK scheduled, Esh. And it should be a riot of a time, I think. And we'll have a good old time talking football. I'm sure the Patriots will come up somehow. And what we call soccer at some point. But looking forward to that next Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So also keep up with the latest of what's going on with the channel. Follow me over at Twitter at DadmanWalking55. Also check out our content and our videos on both Twitch, twitch.tv, DadmanWalking55, and on YouTube at DadmanWalking55. Remember, follow us on the Twitch side and also subscribe and like the videos on the YouTube side. All the feedback really is appreciated and really, helps encourage and, hopefully we can grow more content and do more things in the future and, have a lot more fun with things. Yeah. There's the Go Patriots reference. Yeah. And then, yes, definitely thank you to Clobby for being here. And, I just want to say thank you all. If you watch on replay later, videos, also follow, leave a like, sub, thank you again, and we will see you the next time we meet. Will probably be a Fortnite stream first, but then, like I said, watch our Twitter for announcements about as when we go live. And on that note, thank you all, and y'all have a lovely rest of your night and evening, and have a great night and a great day tomorrow.